Aritake no yume wo kakiatsume Sagashimono wo sagashi ni yuku no sa Poketo no coin So that's who you wanna be, my friend. We are on the cruise! We are! Hello everybody and welcome back to the Pirate Odyssey, where today I have a very special guest here live in person. It's Captain Kuro of the Kuroneko Pirates. So,
no.
Captain Kuro, what was it like to work on the live-action One Piece?
Oh, is he feeling shy today?
This is a very interesting response. What was life as a pirate like for you, Captain Kuro?
Oh my gosh. He's so cute.
Do you think that the live action represented an accurate documentary of your life story?
Wow, he
I
is so
see.
talkative.
I know. How exactly is it that you managed to get away from the Marines? Please tell us in your own words. Tell us your own story.
Oh my god, he's so... I think you're scaring Captain Kuro.
And what was it like working as a servant? Not necessarily specifically for the he's gone. He's out. All right. Thanks for coming on, Captain Kuro. It was good to have you.
Captain Kuro said, I am uncomfortable, help.
So, here we are, the Pirate Odyssey, once again, talking about the live-action One Piece. We're all the way at the 6th episode this time, and I have to say, as a preface, this is my least bad episode so far.
Definitely.
I actually didn't think that this episode was particularly bad in any particular way, except for reasons that are more the overall faults of the series than they are for this episode in particular. Of course, aside from the shoddy camera work that's present throughout the entire series as well.
Yeah, pretty much. At least we didn't get that, like, yellow tent. So, I'm
yes,
good.
there was some actual lighting throughout the episode.
Thank God, you know?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thunk it, you know?
Yeah. I also forgot to turn more lights on for me. Oh.
Look at you wheeling around in your chair.
I usually have better lighting, and I realized I forgot to turn my lights on.
There you go. You go.
So, starting off early on in the episode, there's some actual... Like, I honestly took very little notes on the episode itself. I listed a bunch of things after the fact. This is the episode in which I had the least amount of notes. So there's probably many scenes that I will basically either gloss over or not even mention throughout this rehashing.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I took notes, right? I'm like, where's my camera? So, like, I took notes, okay? But I was reading over them and I was like, I had a lot of good things to say. Like, wow, okay.
It's crazy.
Like, I'm pleasantly surprised. I did have a couple bad things to say, but like that was it, you know? Great.
I tend not to mention good things unless they are like particularly good. So I did not have necessarily a lot of good things to say. But you know.
Yeah, mine wasn't like, oh my god, this is dope. You know, it had some substance to it. So like, I'll mention it if I think it's necessary, but you know.
Yeah. So the first thing I made note of is that there is actual like good dialogue between Sanji and Zeph for like the first time in the series. There's like good character dialogue. Actually, there was some in the previous episode as well. but it was good to have such a like an actual sort of developed back and forth between these two characters who have like a are supposed to have a strong relationship with each other, and it was well represented in the live action. Shocking.
Yeah, was it like when they were like cooking? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I was yeah, I like really like that because like the whole time we've kind of seen them like argue with each other and just kind of like petty kind of back and forth, but they're actually kind of like bonding over their like love of like cooking. And of course they're still kind of like arguing with each other, but it's kind of like a kind of like a funny banter, that
yeah,
like when you're comfortable with somebody, you kind of banter in that way. So it was really nice. And of course, Taz Skylar got to use his cooking skills. So that was great. He was like cutting vegetables like a professional. So good for him. So yeah, it was
yeah.
great.
All those skills that he supposedly at least built up, doing like actual learning how to actually cook so he could method act in live action One Piece, where they, at least so far, have not had him cook all that much. In fact, the main thing in
Yeah.
which they would like show off the skill. I suppose he like showed them off in episode 5 as well. But the main
Mm.
like cooking thing where skills were showed off, they actually had Zeph do, which was filleting the fish.
Oh my God. Yeah. I wonder if they got I can't remember what's the actor's name that plays Zeph. I can't remember his name. Darn it. Oh, Craig. I wonder if they gave Craig like professional cooking lessons as well, or he just like knows how to fillet fish. Whatever. But anyways,
I mean, if you want my honest opinion, if that's what they spent their money on, it was realistically money wasted. That could have gone to much
yeah,
more important things for the series. Like if you have some extra in the budget and your series is good, then you can bring it over and like give your actors some
a little
method
extra.
acting
Yeah,
lessons. But when you have stuff like I'm going to mention later when Arlong shows up, then no, you shouldn't be spending your money on the
method.
method acting.
Yeah, I guess you're right, but I mean, like, it was cool to look at, so especially for the beginning of the episode. So
uh, Here was a not terrible thing, but just like astoundingly hilarious thing, which was a transition between two different scenes where used people's shoes as the transition point. They were talking, I think, to Zoro while he was lying down. Yes, this was after they like treated his wounds, and they panned over to Zoro's shoes, and then the following scene was a shot of Mihawk's shoes on Garp's ship. And I'm like, wow, this is just an incredibly well thought out transition. Just round of applause. You guys really put your best effort in for that one.
I didn't even notice that, to be honest. Like, that's so weird. Why did
It's
they
just
do that?
it's just not even remotely clever, and it's like it's that thing where like we need to transition between two different scenes, but we don't have anything like good written into the script as to how to do that, so we're gonna
Mhm.
make this silly little camera shot be
Transition.
the transition point. It was very
Oh
dumb.
my Oh my god, yeah, yeah. No, 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 no. I know what you're talking about now. Oh my god. So embarrassing. Oh.
it's
Yeah, yeah, you're
it's
right.
it's
That's a big yikes, bro.
I mean, it's not exactly bad, and it's certainly not the worst thing ever, but it is just kind of dumb.
Yeah, especially for a show like One Piece, like you would think you could do a little better. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of awkward. It's a little awkward, bro.
I actually do think, for once, there was some solid diegetic exposition that Mihawk was doing about the warlords and how they work, and how it's like, oh,
Mhm.
even though I nominally work under the Marines, I do whatever the fuck I want, and I would
Okay, yeah.
regardless of whether or not I worked under the Marines. The only thing that's like weird about it is that Garp once again should like recognize this of all the Marines, but that's like a little beside
Yeah.
the point. That's been Garp's position throughout the entire series. It's like here's the most senior Marine who is a vice admiral and a hero, and yet he seemingly knows the not as much as he should about how like the whole system works.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Like it seems like he wants kind of like all the control and power, right? And everybody's kind of like and then you have Mihawk over here like, I gotta do what I want, and he's like so shocked by it, you know. So it's like, bro, like you're the one that called him over. Like I would assume you knew his work ethic, like you know. And I
Yeah.
think like, I think in the manga, Mihawk says something like, "Oh, I've had my fun. Now I'm ready for a nap," or something like that. And he just like takes off, you know. But before he like, like wrecks the ship. And so yeah, that's just how he
Well,
operates, bro. Like, are we
well,
really
he
surprised?
destroyed the ship before he dueled Zoro in the manga.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
after he dueled Zoro, he was like, "Well, this has been an entertaining adventure," and then he fucks off.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, then I got it mixed up. But yeah, like at one point he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm ready to like I want to go take a nap, bro. Bye."
I mean, I do think that after he tries to leave, Krieg attacks him, and he just kind of like brushes it off, and
Mhm.
fucks off anyways. Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's right, yeah.
yeah.
He's like, "Oh, you're just gonna leave?" And he's like, yeah, bro." Like, what are you gonna do about it?" So, yeah.
uh,
And then, like, my thing is, like, Garp throws a fit like a child, like, and just starts throwing papers, wrecking his desk. I'm like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, is this the way Garp would, like, normally act, like, in the series, like, in One Piece, like, in the anime and in the manga? Like, I'm confused, you
no,
know?
he's a lot more jovial and brash. He doesn't act out in spurts of anger like that. And also, what
Okay.
makes me especially sad about the way he acts out in this case is that if he does, I mean, he there might I think there is maybe a couple of occasions in which he does in the actual series, but it's a long series, tough to remember
Mhm.
all of the details.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
but if he were to act out, what would realistically be the case is he would do like a single punch down on his desk and leave a dent in the floor in the process, rather than trash his
Mhm.
whole office in a very cleanable manner.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that's a little bit more reasonable than, like,
Like
trashing up your whole office, you know?
I'll tell you something. One of his nicknames is Garp the Hero, but his other nickname is Garp the Fist because he punches things.
Yeah, 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 okay, and he's and, like, Garp in here, like, he doesn't punch anything, he just throws everything in his
Yeah.
office, you know? So,
Yeah,
like,
he throws things around. I mean, he threw one cannonball.
oh my yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. So it's just, like, out of character for his actual, character
He-
in One Piece. Okay, so okay, that answers my question because I was like, "What is happening? Like, this is weird."
yeah. One Piece has a lot of physical comedy, and
Mhm.
the live action has no physical comedy. Like whenever somebody's acting
Yeah.
like an idiot, another character will literally punch the sense into them. Whether it be Garp doing it to Kobe and Helmeppo, or Nami doing it to any of the other Straw Hats, is
Mhm.
a fairly regular, literal punching of sense into people. And there's none of that in the live action.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very much like it's very much like a manic fit. Kinda like what he had on the ship when, like, Luffy and them escaped. That's kinda like what it
Yes.
reminded me of, you know?
Yeah, it was the same
Eh,
type of reaction, and
yeah.
just rubs me the wrong way.
Same.
Speak,
Yeah, same. And even, like, Kobe was kinda like, "Ooh," you know?
yeah,
Even, like,
for
it's
different
supposed to rub
reasons.
him the wrong way.
Yeah. Speaking of things that rub me the wrong way, though, Luffy's anxiety towards Zoro's
Yes.
physical condition, like I wouldn't necessarily call the way he is acting or reacting like totally wrong, or more accurately, like uh different in character than
Mhm.
Luffy, but it is also different. Like the emotions that are conveyed through the way he is presented in the live action are functionally the same as the ones that are presented in the
Okay.
actual series, but the way that it goes about presenting them is different. In that like he's a lot more talkative about it,
Mm,
and it's there's this consistent reality of the live action One Piece where it talks about its themes rather than presenting its themes. And whereas in the actual series of One Piece, oftentimes it will demonstrate what it's trying to get at through the actual plot of the story or through the actions of its
mm.
characters. It or when they speak it in a lot more like shorter, simpler ways than in the live action.
Right, right. Yeah, and like yeah, Luffy, and then like the way Nami kind of gets on him, like, well, you're the captain, and like you should have made sure like he didn't get hurt, and I like I'm just kind of like, like I feel like Nami in the series wouldn't act like that towards Zoro, at
That's
least like she.
I actually disagree with that. I like thought about it as
Mm,
I was watching because I remember when we watched it together, I was like,
mm,
"What is this? Is like a funky ass scene, where Nami is being like really aggressive about this thing, and she's causing Luffy to like question his motives as a captain." But when I rewatched it this time, I realized that that's not actually what the dialogue is saying. The dialogue is and the actions of the characters are actually the same as would be the case in the series. Nami would actually, at this point in the series in particular, get on people's case for being super reckless,
yeah.
specifically Luffy and Zoro. And Luffy, and he does it in this scene in the live action. He does um, berate, I guess, or rebuff Nami by saying, "Don't, I'm not going to get in the way of people's dreams." But like
Hmm.
the main difference here is that in the live action, he does this across like 4 or 5 sentences, whereas in the actual series, he shuts it off by saying just one sentence, which is, "I'm not going to stop people from pursuing their dreams." Instead, there's like a whole like paragraph leading up to that line.
Hmm. Okay. Maybe that's why I felt off to me.
Yeah,
But
it's because Luffy is so
yeah.
he's so talkative in this series.
Yeah, cuz like like I always say, like Luffy kind of like comes off in One Piece as like a little neurodivergent like kid. And so like he like says what he means in like one or two sentences and is very like blunt and to the point, right?
Yeah,
And so like whenever he's like real talkative like this and he like says like whole paragraphs in the live action, it comes off as like I'm like, who is this? This isn't Luffy. Like who is this boy? Like it's not Luffy, you
yeah,
know?
it's weirdly different, and
Yeah.
I also thought about it because it's like one of the common defenses of a series like this is that you have to is that when adapting things, you have to make changes. I brought this up before,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily a bad change in adjusting from manga and anime to live action to make Luffy more verbally expressive as opposed
Mhm.
to like physically expressive because you can't do as much with like the physical expressions and the physical action. Uh, but it's just it just does come across weird to be a fan of the actual series and know this is like the sort of modus operandi of this character, and it feels very different in the live action adaptation. I don't know if it's necessarily bad for this to be the case
Mhm.
in the case of Luffy. I think it's bad in the case of Zoro. I don't know if it's necessarily bad in the case of Luffy, but it is just strange.
Yeah, I mean like this feels in line with like Luffy in the live action. Because it's like very sincere and it's like very sweet and it's very like he's trying to calm Nami down, like and say like, I'm doing this, or like I didn't say anything to Zoro, and I'm encouraging Zoro to do this because this is his dream. This is what he wants to do, and like you said, I'm not going to get in the way of that. And so like he's trying to make Nami feel better, in like this soft, sincere kind of way. And so like that is something like it feels like in the live action something he would do. But like we said in the anime, it's something he is sincere, right? In the anime, but like to be soft spoken and like sweet, like that's not really in character for the anime. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it is in line for the live action. So like I'm kind of okay with it, but still it's just kind of like, ooh, I don't know.
So we then transition into Sanji's backstory on the rock with Zeph. Uh, and overall, I have to say, it's pretty solid. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be very nitpicky about a few things though. First of all, this child actor was far and away the best of the child actors so far. And from
Yeah,
what I
his
remember of Child Nami is better than her as well.
yeah, his
Uh,
name is Christian Convery, and I couldn't really find any information about him. I don't think he's really been in any movies. So I'm wondering if this was like his first role.
he did
Um
it. He did an actual like pretty solid job.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, he did really good. Like really good.
yeah. Especially by actor standards. However,
Mhm.
there are some things that could have been more acted or acted harder. For example, when it's in the rainstorm and the ship shows off in the distance and he's screaming for the ship,
Mhm.
he could have acted when he realizes that he's not actually going to gain the attention of the ship. He could have acted like in more desperation or more resignation, which was the fact like maybe
Yeah.
collapsed on his legs and like looked rejected. But instead it like cut away to later on.
Mhm.
Uh, I,
Yeah, yeah, that is true.
he could have cried harder when he found out Zeph cut his leg off.
Oh yeah, because like in the manga, I mean like
Dude,
like
oh,
it's so funny because like in the manga and anime, like I don't know what it is about Oda, but he loves to draw like the snot coming out of
oh
people's
yeah,
noses and like
but
big old
it's
tears.
but it
Yeah.
it's it cuts, at least for me, it cuts so deep when he does these things, especially actually in the case of the anime because they have the one song that they always play in these emotional moments, and it's
Right,
just an
yeah.
excellent song that really emphasizes the moment that's just not in the live action. And so
Mm,
having those expressions and the corresponding just excellent voice acting for those scenes, further enhanced even by the music, causes it to cut extremely deeply. And I did not feel cut very deep by this scene, even if it like conveyed the same ideas.
yeah. Yeah, and I guess that would be true. But I did like that like I really did like that although all these things that you say like I think are true. I did think at the end of the day, like the kid actor Christian and the uh Craig Fairbrass who plays Zeph, I really think they had really good chemistry. Like they
Yeah.
really worked well together. And whenever Zeph says like, I like you're also like searching for the all blue, and like I want you to like carry on that dream as well, and I have to keep you alive to do that. You have to be alive to do that. Like I don't know, that hit me hard, bro. Like oh, seeing their facial expressions, and I mean the guy who plays Zeph, he's a great actor. I couldn't find like what other movies I didn't like to see what other movies he's been in, but like I don't know, man. That scene in particular, man, that hit me deep. Like, I
Uh,
was like, ugh, but I don't know, like anytime kids are in like scenes, it just makes me very. It makes me very teary-eyed, so.
Yeah, I don't think that the zoom in on the one tear going down each of their cheeks did it as well as
But cutting through the dirty
Sanji
cheeks?
bawling his eyes out.
Come on. Like, ugh, I don't know. I don't know. I thought it was great. I thought it was really good. So, but okay,
Um,
okay.
when the child Sanji like climbed over the rocks to go attack Zeph, he didn't. He looked too energetic, especially as compared to the
Uh,
anime.
yeah.
Uh, as, for somebody to be starving, like he was climbing those rocks as though he's been out of food almost only for like a few days, as opposed to for like
Like
dozens of days.
90? What was it? 30 days, 90 days?
I didn't fully keep track of the days. Definitely at least 70 though. I remember 70
Mm,
showing up on screen. I don't remember if that's when he attacks F.
okay.
Um,
Okay. But
and
yeah,
and
go ahead.
and then on top of that, this is just the difference between uh the capabilities of animation and live action is that you can really emphasize with drawings them being malnourished, and that you can make them like super skinny and like
Yeah.
accentuate their bones sticking out of their bodies, which is
And like the
done,
clothes hanging off,
yeah,
because
drooping over their
yeah.
skinny ass bodies, and that just and then you just get none of that in the live action, where child Sanji is just as chubby after 70 days of starving as he was when he
Like,
was the
come
cook
on.
on the ship.
They couldn't starve like the child actor just a little bit?
And make him go on a diet just a little bit. Yeah,
Just for a week?
we need we need even more method acting. We need to have these people go on the same fasting diet that those two went on in the narrative. Do the Robert
Like
Downey
like
Jr. of sleeping in an actual dead
yeah.
horse.
Yeah. No, I think there was like I can't remember what movie it was, but like there was a movie where like they wanted I think it was Jared Leto, like he actually like starved
Was it
himself
Morbius?
for yeah, yeah.
It was
Well,
Morbius.
no, it wasn't that movie.
Morbid
It was
time.
the one where like he played like a drag queen or something, I think.
Oh,
Or a trans character. I can't remember.
I mean,
But
some actors go way too far with their method acting, and like
yeah.
really, I do not advocate for actor abuse. It'd be silly to have them starve
I
themselves
mean,
like that. It's
but
just a
Jared
shame that you don't
Leto's
get the
kind of a
same.
weirdo, so,
Yeah.
like, he probably was like he probably suggested it. I mean, didn't he put, like, a dead frog in, like, somebody's, dressing
Oh, when
room?
he was a Joker, yeah, he's
Yeah,
a fucking weirdo.
he's a weirdo, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
anyways.
yeah. Would the Joker even do that? That's just like stupid.
No, he wouldn't. He's just a psycho. Jared
Yeah.
Leto and his cult?
Yeah, his anti-vax cult.
Oh my god. Ugh, what a
Yeah.
mess.
So it's just a shame that in live action you can't get the same effect
Effect.
from seeing the malnourished body.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, oh my god, I remember we were laughing when we first watched it together. We were laughing so hard, like with Sanji's feet, like they were like curved like this because he was standing on a box. Um,
Oh,
when he's talking to Zeph.
you did point that out at one point. I didn't look. I forgot about it, so I didn't see it when I was rewatching.
Yeah, because
Dang.
he's like in front of a green screen. They're in front of a green screen, like.
Yes. uh,
Oh, that was
yeah, but
funny.
the
I was like, "Ew, what's wrong with his feet?" And you're like, "Oh, because he's standing on a box because
I
of
mean,
the green screen."
honestly, it couldn't have been that hard to find like a natural rock formation that you can then green screen like the ocean around. Like, surely
Yeah,
you didn't need to actually green screen the
exactly.
actual rocks. There's a lot of rocks in real life, you know? You could have made it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's literally not hard to find,
Yeah,
but, whatever. Too much effort?
yeah, it's too much effort for this series that pays for their actors to learn how to cook and
Okay.
spends millions of dollars across several years for building like gigantic ship sets. But no, they can't slap a bunch of fucking rocks together and make them wet.
Oh, nope, sure can't. Sorry. Sorry, you're asking for too much, okay? Like, take a chill pill, okay? So yeah.
Um,
But man, that like that like and that seeing his feet like that, like, just completely took me out of the scene at first. But the second time watching it, because I was saw it coming, I was, like, in the scene. I was immersed in the scene. So, yeah. I was like,
uh,
"Okay, I know his feet are gonna look weird, so it's fine."
it doesn't help that when we were watching it, we were relentlessly making fun of it the entire time too. So it's hard to be
Oh, yeah,
immersed into something that you're just grilling.
yeah. Oh, yeah, we were roasting it, and we were having a ball, you know?
Yeah,
It's like,
it was a time. Uh,
oh, yeah.
so the transition both into and out of the flashback scene also is worse than the actual series, and that's strictly because you don't have Don Krieg and you don't have any active conflict going on in the story right now.
Yeah.
Because the context of when it happens in the actual story is, I believe, Sanji's being like beaten down by members of Krieg's crew while Zeph is being
Mhm,
threatened at gunpoint, and so it's like meant to demonstrate. It cuts in there, and it's Sanji thinking about it to himself, not saying it, relaying it out loud. He's thinking about it because he's thinking about how much Zeph means to him, and why he
mhm.
wants to protect Zeph and subsequently Zeph's restaurant. And so it shows like why he resolves to keep standing up over and over and over again. Whereas in this case, he's just telling it to Luffy while Luffy is currently worried about Zoro's injuries. And then he says some shit about like the captain's got to make decisions, which doesn't exactly make any sense within the
For this
context of this
context.
plot. Because it's like, what
Uh,
decision is Luffy making here? I guess he technically made the decision to let Zoro pursue his dream, but there's like no decision that's actively being made here in regards to like what to do next or like what's happening with Zoro or what have you.
mhm.
It's very bizarre to frame this entire thing in the context of like, oh, being a captain is hard and you got to make decisions when there's like no decisions being made.
Yeah, exactly. And Zoro made the decision for himself. Like he consented to the fight. So like everybody needs to take a chill. I'm sorry, but and also like I think before that fight, I can't remember if it's like before or after. Oh yeah, because like Sanji before I think this flashback was watching Zoro's fight with Mihawk. And with Mihawk, like as he's watching, he's like thinking to himself, like, Zoro, just give up on your dream, pretty much. And so we don't get that with Sanji either. He's like, just give up on your dream. Like, what are you dying for? Like, I don't understand, you know.
Which
And
it's
we just
even
so we don't get
better in
that
the
either.
case, yeah, which is like especially important in the case of the actual series because the entire point, or one of the entire points of Baratie and specifically Sanji joining the Straw Hats is this idea of like whether or not he should pursue his dream instead of staying with the Baratie to cook for Zeph.
Yeah.
And so it demonstrates like prior to the whole conflict with Krieg that he is currently more he cares more about his own life and more and especially the Baratier than he does about actually pursuing his dream. And
Hmm.
the conflict with Krieg and everything that happens it effectively changes his mind to be like, no, I'm going to pursue my dream now.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't get any of that conflict. And to me, it's almost like Sanji's whole thing in this live action is just like, oh, like I don't know whether to stay with Zeph or to go and like follow my dream finding the all blue and that's it. You know, there's no conflict. There's no like in really big internal conflict. You know, so it's just kind of like I don't know. And like well, like Zoro says like at the end, like why are we bringing the waiter? I'm like exactly. That's what it feels like. Why are we bringing the waiter? That's what it feels
Very
like.
true. I did think
Because
about
we're
that.
not on this huge journey, like
I did
with
think
Zoro
about
or with
that as
Sanji.
well, and I was like, it's not like quite as bad as some of the others, where it's like basically by circumstance that they went with Luffy. But it once again, when you don't have that major conflict with Krieg happening and all the drama that unfolds around it, you don't
So much
develop.
drama.
Yeah, you don't develop this like conceptual idea of uh them fitting well together and like developing a relationship with each other that would cause Sanji to be allured by Luffy and want to join his crew.
Yeah.
Like, what is it about Luffy in these two episodes of Baratie that would incentivize Sanji to go with him more beyond simply being invited?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because that's what it feels like. It's just like, oh, I've been invited, so I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, it's like he could have gone with like anybody who invited him at
Yeah,
that point. Like
anybody.
why Luffy in particular?
Yeah, and then like in this, in the live action, like Sanji doesn't even see Zoro's fight. So like so we don't even have that either. Like, oh my god. There's so much missing.
Yeah, there's a
What a
lot missing.
pain.
Once again, Luffy's very talkative. Um,
Oh, and my thing is like how Zoro's still passed out. Like, that's not my Zoro. I'm sorry. That is definitely Zolo.
I don't remember how long he was asleep for. And cause he did fall asleep initially after he lost that fight, didn't he? And then
But it didn't feel
uh,
this long though.
well, what happened is that he was immediately after taken on the boat with the two bounty hunters and Usopp to chase after Nami. Um so I don't remember how long the trip to Arlong Park took, like how long he was like asleep for with those
Right.
wounds.
Because I thought he was
Um,
awake at that point,
I think it
like
would
whenever
have
they
only.
left,
I think it
but
was.
maybe not.
I think it was about a day, uh, in the actual series, and I think it was also about a day in this as well.
Okay.
So it's not all that
Okay,
different.
I lied. I'm so
You
sorry.
just you just didn't get like any actual scenes of Zoro being asleep and or being comatose in the way that you do
Yeah,
for live action.
yeah. And man, is I mean, Zoro, he's like or Zolo, he's just like he's sleeping so beautifully. Like he doesn't it's like he's just having a good old nap. Good for
Yeah.
him.
No snoring though. In the actual series,
Oh,
the men snore.
open mouth snore.
They do. I, dude, it's gonna be so sad that the live action isn't going to include that scene where they talk to each other in they argue with each other in their sleep.
I mean, that is just so great. And then Nami's like, "What is happening? What are you
They're so
freaks doing?"
obnoxious they even argue with each other in their sleep. It's,
I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine. What a nightmare. It's just so great. And that's how close they are, you know?
yeah.
That they just even bicker with each other in their sleep. It's
I
just
mean that's
they're
later on in the
vibing in
series
their
too,
sleep.
so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna give shit about it now. I just know
Yeah.
that that's gonna hit the cutting room floor like every other joke, when they if and when they go to adapt it.
Oh yeah. Which I was thinking about you saying that about the office because I saw a clip of the office. so so it reminded me of what you said. That there's no slapstick humor
Yeah.
in this.
It's- yeah.
Because there was a lot of slapstick humor, like, that we definitely missed out on in this particular arc.
Yeah. I think we
Like, it is
mostly
also
talked
very
about
s
it in the previous episode
yeah,
though.
yeah, because, like, it is also because I was looking through the manga, panels this morning, and like it's very very serious, but there's also like a lot of humor in it as well that we're just missing out on. So yeah,
Oda always
I didn't
does.
realize the humor, we were missing out on. I guess.
Yeah, Oda always does this balancing act between the very outrageous humor and intense drama, and he pretty routinely jumps back and forth between those two, but like very seamlessly. But in
Hmm.
the live action, it effectively neuters most, if not all, of the that comedy. So instead, it's just like a very weighty, I suppose, drama,
Yeah,
and it
it feels like
doesn't.
a telenovela.
Yeah, and it doesn't
A
hit the
bit.
same. And it's very tonally different as a result.
Yeah, 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 definitely. And it's just like it just feels like a whole nother series at this point because
Yeah.
everything's just like fractured. It feels like.
So
So yeah.
then we get another marine scene where Garp has to be told by Kobe that you can't beat sense into Luffy, which is something that Garp should know as somebody who tried to beat sense into Luffy throughout like the entire first 6 to 8 years of his childhood.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, and what's his face? Garp even says that himself. Like he says, like I trained him, or I tried to like make him into a marine, and I couldn't do it. It's like, oh well, you did learn the first time, I guess. But like,
Yeah. It's
and
so
to me, I'm like, is Kobe trying? Is he trying to like? Is like Kobe like a replacement grandson? Like I'm confused. Like, is that why
it
he's
did it
saying
did
that? Like,
it did kind of come across that way that it was trying to do like a surrogate replacement grandson. Uh
yeah, that's what it feels like.
but I once again would like to reiterate in regards to Garp trying to force Luffy into becoming a Marine. It's like, yes, that was in fact the case, that in Luffy's childhood, Garp was very insistent on turning Luffy into a Marine. But you have to recognize that by the time Luffy becomes an actual pirate and then meets Garp as a pirate, Garp is very laissez-faire about Luffy's decisions in life. And then he's like, I
Hmm.
tried to make him he's basically, I tried to make him into Marine. I failed. And now all of his decisions are his. And I
Hmm.
just want to
Yeah,
not be involved because I have a personal relationship with it,
yeah, yeah.
which
And
is
and
just
this Garp
different
is,
than the perspective that this Garp presents.
yeah, and like I forgot what I wrote about Garp was like that he's acting like a spoiled brat because he didn't get what he wanted, right? And
Yes,
that
that's actually pretty true. This
and
fucking 70-year-old man who's like the strongest guy in the Marines is acting like a spoiled brat because his grandson didn't become a Marine. Never mind the
yeah.
what the fuck his son is doing. Let's not talk about his son.
Oh, what a god! It drives me nuts. And I did write that also that was he so mad because he heard from a pirate, like an actual pirate, that his grandson has a potential to find the One Piece, and it shows that Luffy is getting further and further, like from his grasp. So like it shows that Luffy is like uncontrollable, and then I hear that the actual Garp in One Piece is like doesn't want to control Luffy at all. He wants nothing to do with the
He's given
matter
up
of
on
what
trying to do
Luffy's
that.
occupation is.
Yeah, it's
You
more
know?
accurate. He gave up on trying to do that, and now he doesn't
Hmm.
want to be involved because he loves Luffy, and so he's like, we're our jobs are at odds. So I'd rather somebody else take all of the responsibility for if
Hmm.
Luffy gets like captured by the Marines or whatever. It's
Yeah.
basically it's not going to be me that's going to be getting involved on that front.
Yeah. So again, it's so weird. It's that makes no sense. But again, whatever. I mean, if you want to make a totally different Garp, like go ahead. But this
Yeah.
Garp sucks because he's a spoiled brat.
So the next thing is there's some just some more very funny bad visual effects.
Uh-oh.
which is when Arlong shows up and jumps out of the water along with his two crewmates there.
My God, yes! I was
Where
watching
it's
that
just, where it's
this
just
morning.
incredibly obvious that they have wires attached to their bodies, it's dragging them out of the water. And the worst
Yes!
and the worst part is that there's an incredibly simple fix to this. Have the actors do like a pose where it looks like they're leaping out of the water, and then they go into like their stance in midair as they land on the deck, as
Huh.
opposed to what happened in the series, where they were already in the pose when they were being fished out of the water.
Yeah, I don't, and I was like, that looks incredibly awkward. Like,
It's
what are we
so
doing?
it looks so stupid.
Yeah, it's just, oh my God. I mean, it looks like they just went whoosh, right out of the water and just
Yeah,
on the ground.
it's just plop.
I was
It was
cracking up when I was watching that. I
It's
was
like
like,
you
I
it's
was
like
like,
you could have them do the human diver pose, or like you could have the arms at the side as the where they're doing all their propulsion with like their legs, and like there's a
uh,
fire department across the street from me.
I mean, they're doing their job. Okay, good for
Yeah,
them. You know.
unlike the people who worked on live action One Piece.
Yeah, honestly,
Uh,
they could probably do a better job getting out of
yeah,
that getting out of that water
yeah,
than these guys.
it looked so bad, man. Uh,
It's just it, but yeah, I'm very
I
embarrassed.
would also like to comment, Arlong's theme song is just bad, man. It's just bad.
It's terrible. I hate it.
It's a
I mean, I
terrible
was
song.
it's like dub, like you said. How would you describe it? Dubstep pirate
Pirate
music.
trap. It's trap
Pirate
music with a
trap.
pirate slant to it.
It's like I'm
It
like you couldn't come up with anything better. Like
no.
this
Uh,
is not described Arlong at all. This is
it
like
sounds bad as a song, and it doesn't really work tonally either.
yeah, it definitely doesn't. Especially like with Arlong's character, that's not who
You
Arlong is. I'm
you would
like,
think if anything you would want something more like Jaws slanted, as opposed to
uh,
fucking trap music, because
yeah,
Arlong's a shark man.
yeah. That and like to me, it'd be like something more like even like horror movie music. No, maybe not horror.
No,
No,
not
because they
horror
did that with
movie.
Kuro. They did that with Kuro, and it didn't come off very well. But something like a little bit more menacing.
Yes,
Uh,
menacing as opposed to ravey.
yeah.
I'm supposed to be
Like
wearing an eye patch to a rave.
like yes, like because I'm like what is it called? Like the what is their
Yar,
place called
these
where they
beats
live?
be dropping, matey.
Oh golly. But like where they live is kind of like very tropical, right? And like
Yeah.
they have that really big so maybe that's why they went with it. But like still,
No.
it's just
Well, if you want tropical, there's like those steel. I guess there's steel drum sounds.
yeah, that
I
would have
don't
been
think they're
better.
steel. I'm not sure if they're steel drums, but like there's that type of drum that's used to that's associated with tropical music.
Mhm.
There's not that's not in that song. Um,
Yeah, which that even that would have been better maybe, but instead we went with this. I'm like, whose idea was
yes,
that? I just want to
and
know who was in charge.
I want to blame everything on the corporate people at Netflix. Like I want to say that every decision that was made is like we have to make this appealing to the youth or what have you,
To
to
the
who
youth.
they think the target demographic of One Piece is, which I mean to some extent is the youth, but the people that you're drawing into the live action are not the actual like youth who are reading One Piece out of the
Mhm.
Shonen Jump magazine. The
Yeah.
people who you're attracting to the live action, especially since its rating is TVMA because of the some of the stuff that's depicted
The
in
blood.
there, are the older One Piece fans who have been reading it for at least a decade now, probably,
Yeah.
depending on who you are,
Yeah.
who have a stronger appreciation for the uh, actual like technical aspects of the writing that is happening in the presentation that's happening in that series, as opposed to like a teenager who was like, haha, rubber man punch.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, these corporate guys, they really just don't know.
Well, I say I want to blame it on the corporate guys. I don't actually know if it was the corporate guys. If it wasn't the corporate guys, it was
Yeah.
just a bad creative decision, which is like the same as every other creative decision that was made in the live action. It was bad. I don't trust any of the creatives who made the live action because they all made bad decisions. It's gross. It's stupid. It's bad.
Yeah. But what I'm like, yeah. But what I mean is like older people don't know what younger people like, you know? So it's just kind of like,
Yeah,
you know.
and at least nominally, the showrunner is a fan of One Piece, and so like he of all people would know that that type of song is not exactly doesn't exactly work.
At all. What is there like a song for Arlong? Like in the anime, do they use a particular
No,
song? No?
no, it's the
Okay.
same songs that there's the same handful of songs that they use depending on the emotional story beat that's happening.
Mhm.
I don't think there's a particular song for Arlong. Um,
Okay.
in part because Arlong might be the like climactic arc of the East Blue, but in all reality, he's not all that significant of
Mhm.
a set piece or an antagonist in the storyline of One Piece.
Mhm.
Um, you only get I mean I also don't think that Crocodile has his own theme song, but you only really get to the point of like the villains being that significant once you get to Crocodile.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Um,
Hmm. But
even so,
yeah,
I don't think he has a
okay.
theme, so it was kind of like a moot point that I even brought that up. Still, it's just a
Yeah.
bad song.
Yeah, it's very bad. So they have really nothing to go off of either. But still, they should have had somebody who like has worked on anime before, you know.
I mean,
Not
yeah,
not like anime
maybe,
music, you know?
maybe. I mean, I think if anything, they should have had people who worked on like The Mask, that movie with Jim Carrey.
Mhm.
Because that
Ooh.
movie, if anything, like visually speaking, and even comedically speaking, is the closest to in is at least from what I know, the closest live action product to what One Piece feels like as a series, where it has goofy off the wall comedy, in a very animated style, but in that movie, the animation that they do is very well blended into the live action. Um,
I haven't seen The Mask, or it's been like forever since I've seen it. It's been like a decade, so I don't remember much about it.
um,
But I'll take your word for it.
so Arlong's making his funny racism speech, and he threatens. To, it's not that bad, because it's not as though like the theme is necessarily subtle in the original series either, and it's fine to have
Mhm.
your like racism, fishmen are superior speech, whatever. Um,
Mhm.
but he does
Yeah.
make a comment where he like he a couple of times I think threatens to eat people, and I wrote down, is it cannibalism for a fishman to eat a human? These are the real questions that we're asking.
These are the real questions. Oh yeah, that's right. I mean, true. True. These are the real questions I want answered. Yeah, baby. You know what? Like, he wouldn't even care. You think Arlong cares? No.
Yeah. So this is the main episode which gave me the impression that Luffy's attacks feel like kind of noodly, in nature and
Noodly.
in feel, whereas his arms are just kind of like whipping around, and whenever they hit something, it doesn't leave that much of like a impression of how much force is behind that punch.
Yeah,
Um,
Arlong, it feels like he barely moves.
yes, and I think that's kind of the point, in what they're going for, and that Arlong is like a much more strongly physically built person, than other people that Luffy has punched up to this point. But I
Mhm.
don't think, like, I think the sound effects to indicate how hard Luffy is hitting him are sorely lacking. And then on top
Yeah.
of that, he hasn't exactly punched many people in the series up to this point, anyways, or things for that matter, to give you a fantastic idea of just how strong Luffy is. Like, routinely throughout the original series, you get scenes of Luffy punching rocks. He in Syrup Village, he literally rips the a mast off of a ship. He
Mhm.
lifts up an entire boulder and smashes it on Kuro's claws. He like punches down doors. Whereas you don't really get, much of any of that in the live action. And so, especially since the sound effects are sorely lacking, it doesn't feel like his punches have any weight behind them when Arlong practically walks through them.
Yeah, definitely. And I got the same impression. So like the fight, because like whenever I watched Mihawk and Zolo's fight, like I was like, it looks cool, and you're like, yeah, it looked cool, but like I don't have anything to say about it,
Yeah,
right?
I didn't have anything to
But
say
like,
about it because it looked cool, because it was fine. I had no
yeah,
problems
yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
yeah, okay, and so like I watched that fight and I was like super invested in it, right? And with this one, I was like, I think it just was like sipping on my coffee and looking at my phone, right? No, like I was just like not invested. I was like you see his arm just kind of like you said, like noodling around, like
just
and
just kind of flying across the screen.
yeah, and like you said, there's no impact behind his punches, so it's kind of like okay, whatever, you know.
And the
But,
other
but 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 somehow it's doing damage to Arlong enough to where Arlong is getting frustrated. Because Arlong is supposed to be like this big guy who
the
who
show
not
may,
who,
even though the show makes a comment, Luffy makes a comment that he thought Arlong would be bigger, and it's like,
yes,
yeah, because he was bigger. I guess that's
he
their
was like
cheeky nod to the fact that Arlong was originally like 9 feet tall or whatever.
yeah, with like this big old chest, like yeah, and so it's just yeah, it wasn't a very effective fight to me. Like it didn't really show like how strong Luffy was. It didn't really show like yeah, like
There's
Arlong is
just
supposed to be like this really like menacing big guy that nobody can take down. At least in the anime, we see that like that nobody can really take Arlong down.
it's
Arlong is this powerful force of nature, and we just don't get that in the live
yeah,
action at all.
it's you did remind me. So that gift that I sent you for that when I'm asking when we're going to do something.
Oh yeah,
We've seen that scene in the anime, right?
yeah.
Um
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
so those two guys are two warlords. It should come as no surprise that they show up later on in the series. The lankier one is called Don Quixote do Flamengo, and
Hmm.
he's like 12 feet tall or whatever, and
Yeah, he's enormous.
he's got those skinny lanky ass legs that he's walking in like the super wide stance. And
Yeah.
I just can't help but think how that sort of like image of what Doflamingo is going to look like is going to just be ruined by the live action should they bring him into the picture, because they're going to make him like a normally somebody of normal height, and then like maybe they're going to have him walk in the goofy ass wide stance.
They're
But
gonna have to like get a man on stilts.
yeah, but the fact that it's not going to be somebody who is like 3 times the height of Luffy is going to just be really sad because there are like some good
Mm,
shots of when those two actually meet each other of Luffy like standing next to Doflamingo as like adversarially. It's supposed it's like effectively standing up to this person who is towering over him. Like there's a really like obvious David and Goliath imagery that Oda consistently does with a lot of antagonists
right.
that like starts with Arlong. And you just don't get that when they're like the same height as each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like oh, and then also I was like we were talking about when we first watched this, like about Arlong's nose, like it just
Yeah.
looks so flimsy and like
Look
it's
a little flimsy. Well, the weird thing about it is that like so in the actual series, it's like basically how do I phrase it? Um,
I said it
it
reminded me of like arrowheads, the way arrowheads are kind of shaped,
yeah, and
like the spikes.
yes, that's the way it's shaped, but it looks like a very solid. The entire thing is one solid piece as his nose,
Right.
whereas in the live action, he's got like the extended flesh, and then he's got some
Mm.
bones poking out of it that are like the arrowheads, and maybe that's how an actual sawtooth shark looks, but it does make his nose look a lot less sturdy, like you could waggle the bones around. I mean, it feels like a kind of silly criticism to have, in all honesty, but it does look a little flimsy.
Yeah, but like when you put the whole picture together, that he's a normal sized, that Luffy's punches like aren't really like making any huge contact, that like he's not super menacing, and then you have like his nose is like super flimsy, like all of these things together make a not super menacing villain.
Yeah,
So sorry, Arlong,
yeah,
you
it's
just
true.
ain't it, bro.
He's
you
got
know?
he's got that really like uh gruff, like a raspy, deep, intentionally deep voice that they have going on. It actually makes me want to listen to the dub voice actor for Arlong
Oh,
to
okay.
see the comparison. I didn't think to try that.
'Cause I
Um,
can hear I can hear, like, the sub you know, like, the Japanese actors, like, laugh in my head.
Sha.
Yeah, and I can hear his voice, like, in my head too, and it's like, he's a great actor, and, a great voice actor for Arlong, like, and so hearing this, like, hearing the way they decided to do his voice in the live action. It's very different. It's kind of weird, but like, okay.
um, I had another comment about like the lack of impact force, and that was that the action scene with Luffy versus Arlong had a lot of like shaky cam. Camera was moving a lot, and that makes the action
Yes.
harder to read. And to me, at least, as a viewer, shaky cam indicates to me that you are using the visual stimulation to hide some aspects of your action that don't look good or aren't pleasing to look at or don't fit well, as opposed to being
Mhm.
confident in the visuals of your action that you can present them flatly straight on.
Yeah, yeah. Now that you mention it, I did kind of notice that too. Whenever there's kind of like shaky cam, it again takes me out of the scene and it makes me not want to watch it and it gives me a headache. So
Yeah.
like that's probably why I wasn't fully invested in this fight as well because I'm like, I'm starting to get a headache, bro.
And
Like
most of the other
it can't.
action throughout the series doesn't have shaky cam either.
Yeah.
It's so I mean, sometimes,
There's a lot of
if I
cuts
remember correctly, there's
sometimes.
like cuts that will hide
Yeah.
things depending on how they're cut. But for the most part, they actually do try and present the action like very straight on, and then sometimes they
Mm.
even try to do some like funny little goofy camera tricks, such as like when Luffy dodges by like bending over backwards, they'll like tilt the camera with him, and it's like, oh wow, we're doing
Oh
camera
yeah.
effects.
Yeah, that's right.
But it is still very legible that this is going on visually, whereas shaky cam is like it makes things way harder to read visually.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, like I said, oh, and then oh, and man, I felt so bad for Zeph. Like Zeph really got hit good. I totally forgot about that because I'm like that. Why do people try and shoot like these fishmen? Don't people know that like guns don't work on fishmen? Like I don't know. I guess it's not well
Well,
known.
well, Zeph should know because he was a Grand Line
Well,
pirate,
he's a
but
pirate,
uh,
but at least he tried, I guess.
he tried. He wanted to defend his restaurant.
Yeah, and then he ended up on crutches. Poor guy. It's like rip, bro. So yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
and I was like, does Zeph? Yeah, I was like, yeah, no, Zeph does get injured pretty good in the manga and anime, doesn't he? I can't remember.
uh, well, it's not by Arlong.
Yeah, not by Arlong, but like somebody I can't remember if it's like Don Creek or
Geen,
who.
I think. Well,
Oh, okay.
Geen is the one who threatens him at gunpoint. I don't know if anybody like manages to really physically assault him all that well.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
because Zeph doesn't get really involved in the fighting.
Hmm. Okay. Never mind then. Okay. I was
He
just
he
wondering.
certainly doesn't get his peg leg broken in in the actual series, which is sad. That is ableist.
That is ableist. Okay, like let's leave
That's
the
a dick
disabled
move,
man
man.
alone.
You can punch him and you can kick him, but don't break his peg leg, man. That's just mean.
That's so rude. Like I'm sure that cost a pretty penny. Okay,
I don't know
let's
about
calm
that, but
down.
it's
Hey,
literally just like you could just like shape down a peg leg yourself.
maybe it's made out of special wood. Okay, maybe it's made out of treated
There's
wood.
maybe it's made out of world tree wood. You actually don't know. That is an actual thing in One Piece. There is actually special wood.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe
You're
it's made
not
out of that wood then.
you're not there yet though.
Oh, okay. So you're not gonna spoil me. Okay. Got it.
No. Um
I'll just go Google it then. I'll spoil myself.
I think it's the Adam tree is what it's called.
Oh,
Um
okay. That's funny. The Adam tree.
yeah.
Okay.
So the that's what I had to say on that front. The scenes in which people are talking to Zoro are also just a little weird, especially
You're
when Luffy is
awkward.
calling to talking to Zoro. When Luffy's doing it, especially, it's awkward because once again, it's just like Luffy is like weirdly talkative and introspective in these scenes. That's like way different from the actual way the actual character would behave. But also,
Mhm.
it just like feels awkward as well.
Mhm. And again, I'm like Nami, she's like very like I guess like talking to like somebody who's like kind of comatose, you can kind of like be maybe you can feel like you'd be a little bit more open um to them because like they're not actually awake and like looking at you, right? And so she's like being really open and like vulnerable about like her story and stuff like whenever she's taking the map, it's kind of like her goodbye. But again, I'm like, why Zoro? I'm s- why him? Like why do they keep wanting to pair Zoro and Nami up together? I just don't understand. I don't understand what the connection is. If anything, it should be like Usopp or something because Nami and Usopp are a lot closer in the anime and
Oh
manga.
yeah, those two are
They're besties.
way yeah, and that is in no small part due to the fact that the two of them are way weaker than the likes of Zoro and Luffy and Sanji. So
Scaredy
they
cats, you
yeah,
know?
there's Nami and Usopp find a camaraderie in their relative weakness.
Mhm.
and need to overcome that weakness in any given like fight or situation to keep pushing forward. Um,
Right. So I'm like, again, why Zoro? It just makes no fucking sense. But okay, whatever.
yeah.
And and Luffy too, like Luffy and I guess because like it's supposed to be kind of awkward like in the beginning when Luffy's trying to talk to Zoro, but um it's like and then like doesn't Zoro wake up and this is when Zoro is like he's like I will dedicate like basically I'm dedicating my
Yeah.
life to you.
Yeah, I don't know why they had Zoro pledges of allegiance twice. Because they
That's
had him
right. It's twice.
they had him do it in the previous episode too when he loses, and that's like supposed to be the moment. That is the moment. I mean, Zoro already basically pledges his allegiance to Luffy in Shell's Town in the actual
Mhm.
series. Doesn't do that in the live action. Mentioned that.
Mhm.
Um,
Because he's still like we're not a crew.
yeah. Oh, we're not a crew. But in Brigatier, following the Mihawk fight of him losing, that is supposed to be his moment of being like, I swear to you as your crewmate, uh, to like not the main thing is that he'll never lose a fight again, but in the process of doing so, he's effectively swearing his allegiance to Luffy. But he just like, why did they have him do it again in this episode of the live action where he's like, yeah, I swear I'm part of your crew. I mean, like, I'm your first mate, bro. Which, by the way, is something that's never said in One Piece. Zoro is never declared to be the first mate of the Straw Hat Pirates. It is basically the
Yeah.
assumption of all readers of One Piece that he is the acting first mate. Whereas
Yeah.
the title he is ever given is swordsman.
Yeah. And yes, so it's super weird. I totally forgot that he like pledges allegiance after he got beat up. I totally forgot about that. And
I mean, it's not like super direct, I suppose, but it's very evident that that is like a portion of what is being said
mhm.
there.
Oh, and then like and this isn't in the live action, but like when I was going through the manga this morning, like after Mihawk like kicks Zoro's butt, like Mihawk says or Luffy says like, "Oh, I'm going to be like king of the pirates. I'm going to find the One Piece." And and Zoro says like, "Oh, I'm like I'm going to beat up Mihawk and like I'm going to be the best swordsman. I'm going to stick by your side whatever." Mihawk says like, "Oh, they make a good team."
Yes.
So we're missing that. So we don't get that like that somebody else is observing like them and seeing that and saying out loud that like wow like they make such a good
Yes.
team.
And there's
You
just
know?
far less of a sense that these are like two peas in a pod, you know? Zoro and
Yeah.
Luffy mesh extraordinarily well together
Hmm.
as a captain and a functional first mate. They act very similarly in their both like literally and in terms of what they strive to do.
Hmm.
uh but Zoro has a more like realistic pragmatic view of what needs to be done to accomplish things.
Right.
uh but both of them are very like brash and strong headed. uh
Yeah. A
and
little
they just
pig-headed.
Yeah, and they just play off of each other very well. And even though it's like kind of weird that that it happens in the way it does on Whiskey Peak, you kind of see that that's the case when they fight each other on Whiskey Peak. That these are like
Right.
basically that they act very similarly to each other, and play
Yeah.
off of each other very well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And so like I'm like maybe if we had kind of like this scene in the where Mihawk acknowledges that like wow these two are like BFFs. We wouldn't need like the scene again when Zora wakes up, you know? We wouldn't need it, like, reiterated, but
Yeah.
whatever. It
Yeah.
was, and we're here.
Yeah. My last note on the episode is that I do actually think that the use of Buggy throughout these episodes and throughout the series, I have some issues with like Arlong going out of his way to like go for the grand line, that being like a plot device. But I think that the use of Buggy within that framework is actually like genuinely clever and good. Especially since Buggy, the actor for Buggy does a fantastic job. And we all love Buggy Peace. Let's go Buggy Peace.
I love Buggy. I love Buggy. He's my man. Um,
Buggy Peace only gets better as the series goes on. He's
oh yeah.
Buggy's the real main character.
I'm excited. I'm excited. Okay. Um, yes. Oh my god, and I totally forgot because Usopp comes in to Zora's room after Zora wakes up. And Usopp's character, I'm sorry, he's so annoying. Um could be because I think I've said this before that like this Usopp in the live action kind of comes off as like, yeah, look at me, like I'm so cool. Like he has like this kind of like swagger about him that I feel like the Usopp in the anime doesn't have. Like the
Yeah.
Usopp in the anime kind of comes off as like goofy and like childish,
the
you know?
the way that the lying is conducted is very different, whereas in the original
Mhm.
series he's doing it to compensate for something. um well, that's not the best way of phrasing it. um in the live action, he is trying he's his lying is a mechanism to play himself off as being cool, but in the
Or
actual
being like greater than what he is, you know?
yeah, but that's also not the best way to phrase it, because that's like literally what he's doing in the actual series too. It's
Mm,
it definitely is a matter of like the tonality of it though.
yeah.
The whereas one displays a lot of nervous, no, that's not quite right either. No, I would have to think about the best way to phrase it
Yeah.
at some other
It's just
point.
like it's a different vibe.
It's a different vibe. I don't have a good way of articulating it right now. And if I and maybe I articulated it when we covered the Sierra Village episodes anyways. I don't remember.
Maybe. Maybe. Oh yeah, and you know, when Sanji's like getting on the boat with everybody, like you know, the boat's pulling out and who is it? It's like Zeph and I think the chef is supposed to be Patty, is that right?
Yes. Patty has no lines of
Um
dialogue, of course.
that's not my Patty, okay? That's not the Patty I know. Anyways, and so like Zeph isn't like crying and you know Sanji is like saying like I'm very thankful for you taking care of me and I'm very thankful for all that you've done for me and you know it's supposed to be like a very like a sweet kind of goodbye and it is for the scene but I did love in the anime how like all the staff kind of comes out and like they're all trying to be
Everybody's
like
trying to be so cool
yeah. Yeah, and everybody's trying to be like a big man and like not cry. And Sanji, he gets down on his knees and like
yeah,
bows and
Zeb comes
you
out,
know.
says one thing, and then Sanji just gets on his knees and starts bawling.
Yeah, and he's like thank you so much. And once Sanji starts bawling, everybody starts bawling, Seth starts bawling
Yeah.
and like and in the manga like some of the chefs are like on the ground crying as
Yeah.
well. And, it's
It's
such a
just
sweet it's goodbye, you know?
it's this really like grandiose
Yeah,
emotional moment.
because
Um
they're family, you know?
yeah. And
And
it's not grandiose in the live action. It's
yeah,
not
it's
a
very
grandiose
subtle.
display of emotion.
Yeah. And like again, what I keep saying every episode is like there is no community. There's no family and community connection.
Yeah.
And I just like again, I'm sick of saying it, but like I just miss that.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
Buggy may have
I just really love that love that they all show each other. So yeah.
yeah, Buggy may have been my last comment on like the beat by beat of the episode, but I did write down a number of structural issues that I thought were
Mhm.
worth talking about with this episode, and one of them has to do with what you're getting at, which is basically everything surrounding the fact that there is no Baratier fight going on, whether it be with Don Krieg or somebody else. There's no greater conflict in which the staff of the Baratier get involved, in which the Baratier itself is threatened, and in is which is related to um, Sanji and Zeph in some manner. Uh,
Mhm.
so
And they kind of try to do that with Arlong, but it just falls flat because Luffy comes in right away, you know, and he's able to handle Arlong.
because it's not about the Baratier, more
Exactly.
importantly.
Yeah. And Sanji says like, "Oh, this has nothing to do with you, Luffy. This has to do with the Barati." It's like whatever.
Sure.
Like, okay, Sanji, calm
Yeah.
down.
Uh
Uh,
so you get none of the set piece of this being like the fighting cooks restaurant, which is like a cool thing. You're instead of it being the floating restaurant with fighting cooks in it, it's just the floating restaurant, which is like it's just less cool. Um,
yeah.
you
And people actually go there to watch the chefs fight. You know,
yeah,
like it's so cool. You know, you get a meal and you get to watch people fight. Like heck yeah, you know,
let's go.
let's go.
You get no as you said, sense of community is a sense of attachment that the staff have for the restaurant itself, and that they like are putting their lives on the line to fight for the existence of the brate of the restaurant. You don't get any of that, and so you as a viewer are less emotionally invested in what's going on, and less emotionally invested in the brate, less emotionally invested in Zeph.
Mhm.
Um, and subsequently, when Sanji leaves, because there's also not much of a relationship between Sanji and the other cooks of the restaurant, it's far less emotional. Even between him and Zeph, despite the fact that there's like a good rapport and a well established one between the two, it's less emotional because you don't get any of the scenes in which Sanji is himself desperately putting his body on the line for Zeph's life and for the sake of the Baratier.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because all he just says is like, "Oh, I'm like I want like I need to take over like the Baratier or like whatever," and it's just like okay, like that's very minor compared to like what actually goes on in the anime, you know? So yeah.
You don't get uh, any elaboration on the themes of the creed of Zeph and Sanji in particular of feeding anybody who is hungry.
Hmm.
Um, where that is used as an actual plot point in the story of the Baratier on the actual series, with how they feed Geen, but Geen turns around and betrays them out for Krieg. But then, because he saved Geen's life and the life of Krieg's crew, Geen then turns his back on Krieg. You don't get any of that like coming full circle arc of feeding people who are hungry. And that's like very
Hmm.
important to the arc. Uh, then when you have Arlong come after the map, it reduces the weight of Nami's betrayal, wherein it takes Arlong being physically present for her to go along with him.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, she doesn't steal the going Mary. Actually, that does beg the question how she even left with Arlong in the first place, because it looks like they swam to the Baratier. So how did she go back?
She rode on Arlong's back,
Yeah,
basically.
just surfing on Arlong.
Yeah, and yeah, that is so weird. How they did that, and because it's almost like Nami's like doesn't have a choice. You know, it's like
Yeah.
okay, she has to go at this point, and when like
And
in the anime,
realistically, she doesn't have a choice in the anime either, but that it's that shadow of Arlong looming over her
mm-hmm,
makes it far more impactful than his physical presence forcing her to go along with him.
right, yeah, exactly.
Also, if I'm not wrong, in the original series, Arlong intended for Nami to be the one to draw the map of the Grand Line and of any location in the Grand Line, as opposed to using a pre-existing sea chart.
Oh,
So it's kind of like, why is he so obsessed about going after this Grand Line map when he could just have Nami draw it for him? Uh, it
that
also
makes yeah,
it also even further makes the Baratier look pathetic because again, the Baratier is not getting personally involved in any conflicts in the live action that are occurring on its grounds.
yeah, and it's just like a fun house. It's a room
Yeah.
in a fun house.
So when Zeph is the only one who gets involved when Arlong like threatens to eat people, it makes you're again just missing out on the theming and the emotional attachment of the Baratier.
Right, yeah, definitely.
Uh, Throughout this episode, and I guess throughout the series as a whole, but in this episode is where I really made note of it. It also put a lot of like scenes that occur at different places in the East Blue into this episode that are just kind of weird because of because the placement doesn't work quite as well because the story is structured in this different way and it reduces like the overall meaning of those scenes like for example when Nami is effectively explaining what her deal is and denouncing the Straw Hats as she fucks off with Arlong. That occurs at some point in the Arlong Park arc. But
Mhm.
even then, it's not her explaining that to the Straw Hats. It's Nojiko explaining that to Straw Hats minus Luffy, and her explaining it to Nojiko. And so it's like it's this weird placement where it's like her explaining this, and it happens like in a few different cases throughout Arlong, in a few different places throughout Arlong Park, that where it's like developing this Nami drama, and it's just like putting one of those in the Baratier. It doesn't quite work as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
Uh,
Um, one thing well, one thing I forgot to mention about the episode, is that I did like the way they, did Nami's tattoo, the way they did it kinda, like, faded, showing that, like, she's, been a part of the crew, like, a long time, you know? So
Attention to
that was cool.
detail. You have.
Yeah.
I do not.
Yeah. Yeah, I like things like that, so, because I used to be a theater kid. So, yeah.
Uh, Another scene that they put in this weird place is this. thing where Nami uh saves one of the Straw Hats' life by manipulating Arlong. And so in the original series, it was with Usopp. Usopp fires off a smoke bomb, and she pretends to stab Usopp. Instead, stabs
Mm-hmm.
herself in the hand. Um, in this case, she is telling Arlong that rather than eat Luffy, she should drop Luffy into the ocean. And it again doesn't like work quite as well because you're not you part of the reason it works in the way it does in the original arc is that you're doing this like continuous buildup of Nami's like personal hardship and an emotional attachment that she keeps having to like suffocate herself basically.
Right.
And in this case it's just kind of like off the cuff. And then on top of that, it serves the dual purpose of effectively covering the time in the Arlong Park arc in which Luffy gets tossed into the ocean and has to be saved by Sanji. Um, uh, I mean, that one's not as bad because, like, honestly, the fight realistically is a little long, anyways, for a variety of reasons in the original series.
Mm-hmm.
But it's again, I'm just saying, like, they're putting like scenes from different points in the series into this episode. Um,
Yeah,
we already,
it makes it awkward too.
yeah, and we already mentioned the Zoro allegiance, and I think there was one or two others that I thought about when I was watching the episode, but after the episode was over, I didn't remember them, and I was like, fuck it, whatever.
You're just like, I give up.
Yeah. Um, that's it
But
though.
I think, yeah, I think that's all I had to say as well. This was like you said in the beginning, this was one of the better episodes. But like, was it great? No. But was it better? Yes.
It was decent. I thought it was perfectly passable and perfectly enjoyable. You know, like 6.5 out of 10 or something. I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I gave it a 5, but like you're much more generous than
Harsh.
I was.
I mean, I maybe the reason I'm being generous is because I'm not making note of the problems that are pervasive throughout the entire series in this episode in
Okay.
particular. Like some of the fucking zoom in shit.
Oh yeah, yeah, true. Oh my god, I
Um,
forgot. Like Kobe has hardly any lines this time. Oh.
yeah. But it
Oh.
genuinely had some like good dialogue. Uh Sometimes. Other times it was kind of awkward, like when Zoro was asleep. But most of the time it was like genuinely solid dialogue, genuinely
Mhm.
solid acting.
Yep.
Um, the backstory
Even
for
with the kiddos.
Sanji was pretty well done. The fights were a little weird, weird visual effects, but it wasn't
Yeah.
like awful,
Fair.
I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay.
um, but you know, it was passable.
Yeah. It was passable. Like, do I want to watch it a third time? No. Definitely not.
Well, that's too late for me.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yikes. So sorry, so sorry. I mean, you
And
just love it so much. You just love One Piece so
yeah,
much, yeah.
I love hating it so much, you know.
You
There's
just love to hate it.
I it's unfortunate watching it by yourself to make these notes and whatnot because watching shows that are bad with like your friends or whatever can genuinely be just like it oh, just a excellent time, just
Oh yeah.
absolutely hilarious. It was
Oh
it
yeah,
wa-
like we were cracking up the whole time we were
yeah,
watching it together.
it was an awful watch, sure, but we were having a great time watching together. The first time I watched it, it was generally I had like a pretty great time watching with those people too. There's
Mhm.
been other shows that I've watched with the premise of these shows are terrible in mind with other people too, and those have been great times. There's a show called Liar Liar that
Mhm.
unfortunately Unfortunately, I have not watched all the way through, and I say unfortunately because it's so bad. I would love to watch it all the way through. But I watched a
Yeah.
few episodes of that with somebody, and that show was hilarious to watch because it's so fucking stupid.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, there are shows that you love to hate watch, and like
Yes.
man, when you watch them, I show just soul crushing. Like, oh god, the first couple like like I said, I watched it this morning. I didn't. I was gonna watch it yesterday, but I didn't want to. I wanted to watch like other stuff. I wanted to watch other new seasonal anime. I don't want to watch this. So yeah.
Every time when it comes Saturday for the live action One Piece episodes, I have been dreading watching the episodes. I'm like, I was just let me play games for a little bit longer. Let me just delay watching it for a little bit longer. I sent you a
Well, I
message,
did the same thing.
I sent you a message earlier, regarding the episode. At what time was it? Fucking hold on. At 6:18, and that was so you can tell I was watching the episode from like 5:30 to 6:30 or 7.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it was really not that long ago that I watched this episode.
Oh my god, I watched it this morning at like 11 a.m. your time. So yeah.
Yeah.
So at least I was on the ball a little bit.
It's just I'm so sick of sitting here with a red pen, just like listing out every single fucking thing I hate. I was actually so happy that this episode was like okay, so I wasn't getting like livid and writing down like a
Oh
million
yeah.
things about why this episode was shit.
Oh yeah, same. Like I looked at my notes and I was like, "Oh, oh, these are kind of good. Okay. Okay, got it. Okay. We're doing good. I'm not in a terrible mood."
Yes, thank Christ. And it gave me some time to prepare for my bit too.
Oh yeah, you're beautiful. I mean, I love Ignatius.
Yeah.
I don't think Ignatius liked it very much though. Poor guy.
It was, he's fine. He's eating food next to me right now.
Oh, good boy.
Yeah.
Poor baby.
I also had the dolphin plush strapped to my head, but
Oh, it was a dolphin. Okay,
yeah,
I
that's a
wasn't sure what
dolphin.
it was.
I mean, it's a little hard to tell front on. I ended up having to take it
I
off
just
because
saw a big white thing, you know.
it's blue. I'll have you know.
And
Um,
oh, it came off white.
well, the underside was white, so
Oh,
like
okay, okay,
blue and
okay.
furry and stuff. Underside was white. I ended up having to take it off though because it was fucking with my audio through my headphones a little bit.
Oh,
The way
okay.
it was strapped on.
Figured.
Yeah.
Figured.
Uh, that's been our off-topic conversation. In any case, thanks for watching. Next
Thanks.
time and next week, we'll be talking about the 7th episode of One Piece live action, which I can practically guarantee you will be a lot more vitriolic.
Oh yeah. Oh, just gonna. Yeah.
So until next time, I'm gonna cry myself to sleep every night in anticipation.
Same.
Later.
Same.
Oh.
And my intrusive thoughts are gonna be this episode.